Okay, so we are back, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do version 2 of PetsApp v2. So there's a PetsApp v2 directory, which is the completed project for your reference, and I'm going to start with the v2 skeleton so we can start building it up again. So in this directory, there is again a package.json file, and what I'm going to do now is I am going to do an npm install in order to install the dependencies needed to work with SQLite, which is a database we're going to use. The other thing we're going to do is install this thing called NodeMon, which is a monitor for Node.js apps that allows you to Node.js to restart the server automatically every time you save the file. So this prevents us from having to manually Control-C to stop the existing server and then restart it every time we save the file, which is kind of annoying. So to install NodeMon, we use this command, and we actually need to use sudo for root mode. So npm install gnodemon, and this should install. And once this installs, we can just run the server with NodeMon instead of Node, which stands for Node Monitor, I guess. So I'm going to switch to this screen here, and I'm going to go to PetsApp v2 skeleton. And once that's properly installed, it says installed, I'm just going to start the server with NodeMon server.js. Okay, so now if I visit PetsApp, okay, so remember here, I can type in my name and see this, and John is here, and Carol is here as well. And if we type in someone who's not in the database, it'll say cannot find user. So what we're going to do now is instead of using a fake database, we're going to port it over to use a real database here. So remember how before it was a fake database that it was just a JavaScript object. And now what I want to do is I want to use a real relational database. So which one should we choose? Well, there are many possible choices for databases to choose, but I think one that's really good for teaching is called SQLite or SQLite, however you pronounce it. It happens to be, I think, likely the most widely deployed database in the world. And why is that? And it's because SQLite is found in every Android device, every iPhone, iOS device, every Mac, every Windows 10 machine, every major web browser, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and the list goes on, and millions of other applications. So it is really widely deployed because it's this really lightweight database that actually stores your entire database as one single file. And I really like this property because then backing up your database is really easy. You can just back up and copy the file. You can delete the database, but deleting the file, you don't have to do any kind of setup, usernames, configurations, servers, or sign up for any accounts on any cloud services. It's just a file. So SQLite is really great. It also has bindings to most popular programming languages. So we're going to use SQLite bound to JavaScript here. So recall that the first thing we want to do is get rid of this fake database. So I'm just going to erase it. And what I'm going to do now is I want to have the /users use my real SQLite database instead of this fake one that I just deleted. So the first thing I want to do with the database is to actually create it. So this create database.js I've already made for you, so I don't have to write it from scratch. The idea is that you import the SQLite library using this require statement, then you create a connection to the database. This one I call pets.db. So pets.db is just the name of a file. It's just the name of the file, my file system, and I call it pets.db. And what does this pets.db do? This will store the data I want in my database. And then what these lines of code do, I'm going to make it a little wider. What these lines of code do is that they first create a database table. So this is all SQL or SQL code inside of here that happens to be run from JavaScript. And I create a table and I insert 3 rows. One is Philip, Professor Cat, John, Student Dog, Carol, Engineer Bear. Remember this is the exact same 3 pieces of data we had in our fake JavaScript object database. And then we say success, and then we iterate through all of them and print out their contents. So I just do a select statement and I print out all of their contents one by one, and then I close the database. So I will first run this on the command line. So I'm going to go exit, and I'm in the command line now. And if I look at ls, I've actually run this before, and there is already a pets.db. So I'm just going to remove it just to make sure it starts from scratch. So to run create database, I just run node and create database.js. So notice how this is just a script that just runs once, right? There's no web server here. It happens to be in JavaScript, but you can write it in other languages like Python or Ruby if you want. But I just do everything in JavaScript just because it's easier this way. So when I run it, it'll say successfully created the users to pets table in pets.db database, and I printed out the contents. So if I ls now, you'll see that there is a pets.db. And what happens if I try to run it again is it'll give me this error because it says table pet users to pets already exists. It's because I've already made the table. So if I keep running it, I'm going to keep getting an error. If I want to remove the pets database, I'm just use the rm command to remove it. And now when I run node create database, well, now I'm just going to ls to make sure that there's no pets.db here. And now when I run node create database, it will create the database again, and there's a pets.db. So this initialization code you usually run once just to create the initial contents of your database.